Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Echo of Life. Let's start. Let me share something I've realized after years of observing people, often without saying a word. Those who don't speak much tend to understand the most. While the world fills the air with noise, they sit and listen, truly listen. They're not absent. They're engaged. Not shy but careful. Not cold, but protective of what matters most. Their energy, their peace, their understanding. You see, silence isn't empty. It's full of what others overlook. The tone of a voice, the flicker in someone's eyes, the meaning behind a sigh. For the quiet ones, words are valuable. They spend them wisely. If you've ever been told you're too quiet, I want you to hear this. That quietness isn't a weakness. It's a form of wisdom that a loud world often misses. The psychology of those who speak less is deep and often misunderstood. For them, silence isn't a lack of thought. It's the weight of too many thoughts at once. Most quiet people speak only when they have something meaningful to say. Their mind isn't just forming words. It's analyzing everything. Who's listening? How it will land? What's left unspoken? It's not overthinking. It's emotional intelligence in motion. Research has shown that those who speak less often have higher self-awareness. They reflect before they react. They feel deeply, sometimes so deeply that words can't fully capture what's inside. That's where the misunderstanding begins. Our world rewards volume, loud confidence, echoing opinions, personalities that fill the room. But quiet people know something important. Noise doesn't equal depth, and speaking more doesn't make you wiser. Think about it. In every room, there's often one person who doesn't say much, but when they do speak, others listen closely. That's not by chance. It's respect earned through silence. Because silence builds presence, and presence builds gravity. Quiet people operate differently. They notice what others miss. The trembling hand, the hesitant pause, the shift in energy when someone enters the room. It's like reading between the lines of human behavior. That's not magic. It's observation, sharpened by listening instead of interrupting. When you talk less, your mind grows sharper. You start to hear what isn't said. You sense what others try to hide. And that gives you a quiet kind of power, the power to understand without judgment, to empathize without control, to see beyond the masks people wear. But here's the reality. Being quiet doesn't always mean being calm inside. For many, silence is a shield, a way of containing inner chaos. A quiet person may look peaceful outwardly, but inside their mind is an orchestra of thoughts, memories, worries, and possibilities, all playing at once. That's why they pause before speaking. They're seeking harmony before sound. Psychology tells us that many quiet individuals are introverts, which isn't about social anxiety. It's about energy. They recharge in solitude. They find clarity in stillness. Too much noise, whether verbal or emotional, drains them. So they choose their words like an artist chooses colors. Carefully, intentionally, deliberately. It's not about being mysterious. It's about being precise. For a quiet person, words carry weight. Once spoken, they can't be taken back. And sometimes, silence comes from something deeper. A past of being misunderstood, moments where speaking up led to ridicule or rejection. So instead of fighting to be heard, they learned to listen, to observe, to speak only when it felt safe. Over time, that became more than a habit. It became a way of navigating the world. But don't mistake that caution for weakness. Within that quietness lies one of the rarest abilities today, the ability to think before reacting. In a world of instant opinions and emotional reactions, that's a quiet superpower. People who speak less often score higher in self-regulation, the skill of controlling impulses. They can feel anger, excitement, or frustration without letting it dictate their words. That's not passivity. It's mastery. That's also why so many thinkers, creators, and innovators throughout history were observers first, speakers second. They lived in the quiet spaces of their minds, connecting ideas others couldn't see. Because silence gives birth to insight. Creativity blooms in stillness. Truth is heard in quiet, not chaos. But let's be real. Being quiet in today's world isn't easy. People often mistake silence for awkwardness. They fill every pause with noise, every quiet moment with talk. And when you don't match that rhythm, you might be labeled distant, cold, or disconnected. But what if being quiet isn't a flaw in social rhythm? What if it's a different kind of rhythm, one that listens more than it speaks, that understands before it reacts? Because silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening, just internally. And maybe that's why quiet people connect so deeply when they do speak. Every word is filtered through thought, empathy, and honesty. They're not trying to impress, they're trying to express something true. Studies have found that people who are more introspective and quiet often show heightened brain activity in areas linked to empathy and self-reflection. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's processing. They're listening to others and they're listening to themselves. But this depth comes with a cost. When you see, hear, and feel deeply, you also carry a lot. Quiet people often absorb the energy around them, the tension in a room, the sadness in a voice, the mood of a conversation. That's why solitude can feel like healing. It's not loneliness, it's release. And yet, when they love deeply. When they care, it's genuine. When they show up for someone, it's not out of obligation. It's from a place of true understanding. They don't do surface level. They don't do small talk, they do meaning. If you've ever met someone who speaks softly but leaves a lasting impression, you've met someone who values silence not as a void, but as a space. A space for truth, for listening, for presence. They listen not to reply, but to witness. That's rare. Here's the quiet paradox. They crave connection, yet fear being misunderstood. They want to be seen, but not put on display. They want to be heard, but not talked over. So sometimes they retreat, not because they don't care, but because they care deeply. If you're someone who's quiet, remember this. You don't owe anyone noise to prove your worth. You don't have to speak to be powerful. You don't have to explain your silence. It speaks in how you notice, how you feel, how you understand. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a different language. A gentle way of saying, I'm here. I see you. I understand. And sometimes that says more than words ever could. Because in the end, it's not how much you talk, it's how deeply you connect. And those who live in quiet often connect the deepest. They just do it in a way the world has forgotten how to recognize. There's something even deeper beneath this kind of silence. Something psychology begins to explain. Behind many quiet people is a history of internal noise. Growing up where talking was loud but listening was rare, where emotions weren't discussed but erupted. So they learned to protect their peace by turning inward. And once silence feels like safety, it becomes home. Many quiet people weren't born that way, they became that way. It's an adaptive silence, a way the nervous system learns that saying less can mean staying safe. Over time, it becomes part of who they are. That's why quiet people can seem mysterious. They've refined their inner world, so the outer world rarely gets full access. It's not secrecy, it's boundaries. Not walls, but filters. And only those who truly listen get to enter. But there's something both beautiful and heartbreaking here. Quiet people feel deeply but express sparingly. They might go unnoticed in a loud room. Yet they're often the ones who sense your pain with just a look, who know when your smile isn't real, who hear the truth beneath your laugh. Because they live in observation, not reaction. In psychology, there's a trait known as high sensitivity. About 20% of people have it. It means heightened sensory and emotional awareness. Their nervous system takes in more detail. Every shift in tone, every micro-expression, every change in atmosphere. That's why they may speak less. Their mind is processing more than most realize. Every conversation is layers of meaning. What's said, what's not, how it's said, why it's said, can be overwhelming. So silence becomes a form of rest. But quiet doesn't mean passive. Some of the world's most influential minds were quiet observers. Stillness isn't emptiness. It's incubation.
I told you it was over.
It's where ideas breathe before they're spoken.
I had no choice.
When a quiet person shares their thoughts, it's often something distilled from reflection. Sometimes hours, days, or even years of it. Their words aren't casual. They're considered. That's why they resonate. Still, that depth can bring loneliness. In a fast-moving world, stillness is sometimes mistaken for disinterest. Silence can be read as detachment. But quiet people are often the most present in the room. Their silence isn't distance, it's depth. They're not zoning out, they're tuning in. To them, conversation is an art, not a reflex. That's what makes them powerful communicators, just not in the usual way. Quiet people often excel in nonverbal connection. Their eyes speak, their presence comforts. They can support someone without saying a word, because empathy at its core doesn't always need sound, it needs presence. And they offer that completely. You can feel when a quiet person cares. It's in how they remember small details you shared weeks ago. It's in how they listen, not waiting for their turn to talk, but truly seeking to understand. That's what makes them memorable. But silence has its shadow, too. For some, it becomes a barrier. They may equate quietness with control, as if avoiding words avoids vulnerability. They fear speaking might reveal too much or invite misunderstanding. So they hold things in until silence feels heavier than speech. That's the quiet paradox. They long to be known but not exposed. They crave connection but not chaos. They want to be heard but not questioned. So they stay visible yet unseen. Psychologically, this balance between expression and restraint can create tension. That's why many quiet individuals may experience overthinking or anxiety. Not because they're weak, but because their minds are constantly weighing feeling deeply against staying composed. They feel much but say little, and that space between feeling and speaking can become its own kind of quiet ache. Yet that same quietness can also be their greatest teacher. Through silence, they learn something the loud seldom do. Not everything needs to be said to be understood. Presence often speaks louder than words. Patience reveals more than reaction ever could. When you're quiet, you notice life's subtleties. The soft sigh before someone gives up. The light in someone's eyes when they talk about what they love. The tremor in a voice when someone's pretending to be strong. You see life not just as events, but as emotions in motion. And that kind of perception brings both wisdom and fragility. Maybe that's the trade-off. Silence gives you depth at the cost of simplicity. Because when you see deeply, you can't unsee. When you understand fully, you can't return to innocence. Yet this is what makes quiet people grounding forces in the world. They bring calm to chaos, thought to reaction, presence to noise. And in a time when everyone is trying to speak louder, they remind us of the power of stillness. There's a confidence in not needing to fill every silence. A strength in not needing to win every conversation. That's the quiet power. The unspoken assurance that truth doesn't need to shout. So the next time you meet someone who doesn't talk much, don't assume they have nothing to say. Maybe they're measuring the moment. Maybe they're letting you speak because they truly care what you're saying. Or maybe they're watching how you speak, because that tells them more about you than your words ever could. You'll know when you meet one of them. They listen without judgment. They look at you in a way that makes you feel seen. They respond with words that feel like mirrors. They remind you that silence isn't absence. It's attention. And if you're one of those quiet people, if you've ever felt you don't fit in because you don't talk as much as others, please know, the world needs you. Your silence balances its noise. Your stillness restores its calm. Your depth deepens its understanding. You don't need to change to belong. You just need to understand your quietness for what it truly is, your way of connecting differently. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. Because in the end, the world doesn't remember who spoke the most. It remembers who made them feel the most. And the quiet ones do that quietly. They speak in gestures. They comfort in presence. They express through understanding. And sometimes that's enough. Maybe the real reason they don't talk much isn't shyness or fear, but a quiet realization. Words can explain thoughts, but silence can reveal truth. And truth doesn't always need to be spoken to be felt. So to the quiet souls listening, keep being who you are. Don't rush to fill the spaces. Let the world slow down to your rhythm. Because silence isn't the absence of life.
But you came back anyway.
It's where life breathes between the words. And maybe that's where the deepest wisdom lives. In the pauses, in the stillness, in the moments where nothing is said, but everything is understood. Thank you watching my video. Please subscribe my channel for more update.